Today we're doing St. Louis style spare ribs. We're gonna do them two different ways. So one set will be done on the Lone Star Grillz 20x42 offset smoker. I'm gonna cook them low and slow. Temperature will probably be around 250 degrees throughout most of the cook. The other set will be done on the Smokeslinger, and I'm gonna cook them using the direct heat method. I expect that cook to take around 90 to 100 minutes. Temperature will probably be around 350 degrees. The goal is to compare how the ribs turn out from each smoker. I want to see how they taste, how the taste compares, the tenderness factor, whether one is noticeably more tender than the other, and then we'll also take a look at the appearance. So stick around, we'll take you through the steps for both cooks and see how they measure out. So what we've got here are two St. Louis style ribs that I picked up from Costco. And what I really like about buying them at Costco is that they've already taken care of most of the work, which basically means that they've already removed the brisket bone from it. So for the most part, the shape of these ribs are already set up for you. So really, what we just want to do is take off like any hanging pieces of fat, like over here. And I might do a little bit of trimming just to square them off. But again, this is backyard barbecue, so I'm not overly worried about trying to make these look perfect. If these were for a competition, I'd be more concerned about making sure that all of the edges and everything is shaped perfectly, but that's not the case here. So first I'm just gonna look these over, just give them a little bit of a eyeball test, and then start figuring out what I want to remove from these ribs. Now, you have options. There are different things you can do with the silver skin. I know a lot of folks will actually take the time, to work their fingers in and peel the silver skin off. Again, this is backyard barbecue. I find that what is actually just as effective is to just score the backside with your knife. So just run your knife across those bones. And this will be just as effective at the end of the cook. So at the end of the cook, you're not going to be chewing on that silver skin, and this is really all you have to do. Now, another thing I'm doing today in terms of my seasoning, in my last video, we did direct heat ribs on the Smokeslinger. I tried 3 different rubs, including a combination of just salt and pepper. And what my wife and I found, we were blown away by the taste of just doing salt and pepper. And that's going to be my process moving forward. So I'm not using any fancy commercial rubs or any wild combinations. This is as simple as it can get. And you're going to really taste the pork flavor. It's really gonna shine through. Since I'm just doing salt and pepper, I'm not even gonna use a binder today. I'm just gonna go salt directly on the backside here. Okay, and then just a light pat is all that's needed. And the salt is going to pull moisture out of the ribs on its own. So we're just gonna let these sit at room temperature for a while I get the smokers ready. So actually, I think I'm gonna let these sit with just the salt, and then we'll come back later, let that salt pull moisture out, and I'll come back later and do a run with the pepper. So we're gonna do salt first, and then follow that up with pepper. You know, and it may look like I'm using a lot of salt, but it's not going to taste nearly as salty as you might think at the end. So I'm going to take this rack, put it aside, let it sit, let that salt pull the moisture out, and then I'm just going to repeat the process for these other ribs. Shape them, get rid of any pieces of fat that I don't want. Get rid of any bone fragments, shiner bones, and then season them with salt, let them sit, come back and do pepper. Because we're using two different cookers, we're actually gonna do the ribs, we're gonna start them at different times. So the cook on the Lone Star Grillz offset smoker is gonna be a low and slow cook. So we're gonna get this one set up first. And all I'm doing here is I like to have a small contained fire in the LSG. So I'm just gonna start off by just putting enough lump charcoal to cover the bottom of this, the bottom of the grate inside of the charcoal basket. And then what we'll do is we'll put more charcoal inside of a chimney, and once those coals ash over, we'll pour the hot coals over the unlit coals, and that's how we will get a good coal bed going, from which point we will then add a wood split. So let me get the chimney part going. And usually these coals here will ash over in about 20 minutes or so, and they'll be ready to be poured over the unlit coals. Okay, so over here on the Lone Star Grillz, our coals that have been in the chimney have been going for about 20 minutes, and they're pretty well ashed over. So now I'm gonna dump these hot coals over the unlit coals inside of the firebox. And then we're just gonna let these burn for probably about 20 minutes. What that'll do is that'll cause the unlit coals to catch. Meanwhile, I also have one wood split off to the side, so it's gonna be preheating. So once this coal bed is going, then we're gonna take this wood split and put it up on top of the lit coals. All right, another 20 minutes has gone by, so the lit coals that we poured on top of the unlit coals have allowed everything to get pretty well ashed over. This wood split I had sitting over on the side so that it can preheat. So now I'm just gonna take the wood split and put it on top of these coals. And then hopefully within a few minutes, we'll see this wood split begin to catch. And the goal here is to allow this wood split to burn down into coals, and then we just start to repeat the process. So this is really the process of what it's like cooking on a stick burner, especially one with a relatively small firebox, like on the Lone Star Grillz 20 by 42. I like to just do one split at a time, let it burn down to coals, and then add a new split, and just keep repeating the process. Generally, I feel like I end up having to add a new split maybe every 45 minutes to 1 hour. So what we see actually initially is the coals here are beginning to warm up that wood split, which is why we're seeing so much smoke. So smoke usually forms at relatively cooler temperatures, but then once it gets hot enough, we'll see flames when that wood split catches and ignites. So it's doing exactly what I expect it to do. Okay, so for the Smokeslinger, instead of using lump charcoal, I'm gonna use briquettes. And like I did in the direct heat video that I did last time, I'm gonna use B&B's competition briquettes. So we're just gonna fill up the bottom here, try and get the bottom be fully covered with the briquettes. And one of the advantages of using briquettes when you can with a long cook like ribs is that briquettes don't burn as fast as lump does. So briquettes are really good for long cooks. And then you might be wondering why I'm using lump charcoal in the offset smoker. And that's mostly because ultimately we're going to be cooking with wood splits, and I feel like the lump charcoal more closely resembles what the wood splits, when they burn down into charcoal, into coals, they are much more like lump charcoal. So I like to keep everything natural and consistent inside of the stick burner. So what we'll then do is we'll add some more briquettes to chimneys, get them lighted, and then again, similar to what we're doing for the LSG, when the coals ash over, we'll dump the hot coals over the unlit coals to bring the Smokeslinger up to temperature. So now over on the Smokeslinger, we're gonna go ahead and pour our hot coals over the unlit coals. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. And I know some of you are probably thinking, especially when you see that I'm only going to do 2 racks of ribs, that this is probably overkill. But we're just doing this for demonstration purposes to see, so you can see the process of one of the ways of getting the coals lit, the fire started in the full-size Smokeslinger. So I'm going to light up baskets on both sides and use the full capacity. Okay, so the ribs have been hanging out in my refrigerator while I get the smoker up to temperature with the salt pulling out that moisture. So again, this is real simple, keeping it basic. We're just using salt and pepper. So we already used kosher salt. Now I'm using 16 mesh black pepper, and I'm just gonna coat both sides with the pepper. Okay. So that's the bone side. Now I'm just gonna repeat the process on the meat side. So when cooking with offset smokers, AKA stick burners, one of the other things that we're always concerned about is the quality of the smoke that's coming out of the smokestack, because inevitably that is going to be essentially another seasoning. It's like another spice that goes onto your meat. So right now, the smoke that we're looking at, it's a little heavy. It's kind of a heavy billowing smoke, and that's mainly because I just added some more lump charcoal to my coal bed because I want to try and help increase the temperature a little bit. So I prefer the smoke to be a little clearer, less heavy. You really want what you hear in the barbecue world talked about as a light blue smoke or an almost invisible smoke. So that's what I really want to see before I put the meat onto the smoker. So I think right now we're just going to let this continue to burn, and as the temperature increases, I like to see the smoke get thinner and closer to that thin blue smoke that we want. Now here we're seeing a smoke that's more preferable for using as an ingredient on the meat. So I've waited it out a little bit so that the temperature can get a little bit hotter. I also cracked open the door to the firebox a little bit to get some more air in. And now we're seeing that the smoke is beginning to clean up. So now it's looking more like that light, thin blue smoke that's desired. Okay, the temperature on the Lone Star Grillz has come up to temperature. The smoke has cleaned up and is at the consistency that I'm happy with. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get these ribs on the smoker. Now that the ribs are on the smoker, the overall plan is to let them go without spritzing or anything for maybe the first hour or so. After 1 hour, I'll come back and take a look, see if they need to be spritzed. Overall though, I intend to let these ribs go for about 3 hours before making a determination. Am I gonna wrap or am I not going to wrap at all? Just kind of see where it is after 3 hours and then determine the next big steps. And then by the way, when it comes to spritzing, I like to keep it simple. So when I do spritz these ribs, I'm just going to spritz with water. Okay, we're gonna get the St. Louis ribs on the Smokeslinger. So I'm actually gonna do 2 on each side. Currently, my left side is reading 343 degrees. Right side is a little cooler at 309, but I'm confident the temperature will continue to creep up. But both sides are hot enough in order to do this direct heat cook. So we're gonna start with the left side. And then here's the right side. I pretty much have them all kind of in the center. So hopefully that kind of balances out the heat deficiency from one side to the other. And same thing. Now with these ribs, I do expect these ribs to cook faster than on the Lone Star Grillz. Expecting them to go for about 90 minutes or so. So I'm gonna wait until after 1 hour on this side. We'll take a peek. On the LSG, we're gonna wait until after 2 hours to take our first look on that side. Okay, so I decided that a 1 hour check for the Lone Star Grillz was probably too soon. So instead we're checking, this is a little bit after 2 hours, what we're looking at right here. And the ribs are coming along fine, but they clearly have a ways to go. We're not really seeing any pullback from the bones at all. And I'm basically now just looking at them to determine whether or not I want to do any spritzing. But at this point, you know, they're cooking low and slow. So, and they still look pretty moist up on the top. So I don't really see any reason to do any spritzing at this point. So we're just gonna let these continue to go just as they are. All right, these ribs on the Smokeslinger have been on now for a little over 90 minutes. So I'm just gonna do one of my favorite ways to see if they are ready. So basically this is the bend test. And what you're really looking for is you're looking for the flap, when you hold them up across the middle, the ribs should flap over just like this, and they start to look like they're about to break apart. So this rack is definitely done. And these are hot. Now this one doesn't quite have as much bend. So I'm gonna let these go a little bit longer. Ooh, that's hot. Wait a minute. I need to give my fingertips a moment. And we got this one. I feel like these can go, the ones in the middle, I feel like these can go maybe another 5-10 minutes. And I'm really confident, this is really hot, but I'm really confident about this one. This is definitely done as well. Super hot though, but let me put that back down. All right. So we're definitely gonna take off the ones on the ends. Yeah. All right, get this one. And one of the beautiful things about using salt and pepper is the color. The color I feel is pretty natural on these ribs. This is what they should look like. And let's see where we are. Okay, this is looking more done to me now. So I think this is ready to come off. Yeah, got that flap in the ribs. These are all done, ready to go. All right, the ribs on the Lone Star Grillz has been going for about 3.5 hours, and I just wanted to get another look at them. Starting to see just a little touch of pullback, but I can tell just by eyeballing them that they still need a little bit more time, because when it gets a little closer, we'll see like the bones or the meat will start to kind of shrink and tighten up a little bit more. And we're definitely not quite there yet. What I'm trying to decide is whether or not I want to wrap these ribs. I'm leaning towards not wrapping them since we didn't do a wrap on the Smokeslinger direct heat cook. I want to try and keep these as comparable as possible. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to let these continue to go. And we've been pretty safely in the smoking zone, but I think I do want to see if I can get the temperature to come up maybe 10-15 degrees on average. So I'm going to stoke the fire, try and up the temp a little bit, and push this cook along without having to wrap. All right, we are 4.5 hours into this cook, and I was very intentional about bumping up the temperature on the Lone Star Grill so that we could start to move this along. And now we are beginning to see some bend. Let me turn it that way. We're getting that bend, and I do feel like these ribs are basically done, at least this one. You're also starting to see where it's starting to break apart. So that's another sign that the ribs are done. So that's that rack. Okay. And yeah, this one is also flapping over pretty good. So I think we can call it. These ribs are done. So I'm gonna get these off of the smoker. Gonna let them rest for about 15 minutes or so. And then we're gonna do a side-by-side comparison, and we're gonna compare these ribs, salt and pepper, low and slow on the offset smoker, to the same ribs cooked the same way on the Smokeslinger. We're gonna compare them side by side, take a look at the color, the tenderness, and most importantly, the taste. So that's coming up. The ribs from the Lone Star Grillz and the Smokeslinger are all off of the respective cookers. I have them in my food warmer. I'm gonna hold them there until my wife Jeannine comes home so she can participate in the taste test. It's always a lot more fun when she's around for it. But let me recap what happened. So we did sets of ribs on both smokers. Again, the LSG is an offset smoker. The ribs were on that smoker for 4.5 hours. I did not wrap, did not spritz, just used salt and pepper for the seasoning. Smoke flavor from the LSG is essentially the third ingredient. Then on the Smokeslinger, the process was essentially the same, except those ribs were cooked under direct heat at a much hotter temperature. The temperature seemed like it was between maybe 330 on average, whereas I would say the average temperature on the LSG was probably closer to 240, maybe 235. The Smokeslinger ribs were done in about 100 minutes, so very close to that 90-minute threshold that I had tried to emulate in a previous video, what I saw Frank Cox do over on the Smokeslinger channel. Again, process was the same. Smokeslinger ribs were seasoned just with salt and pepper, did not spritz, did not wrap. It got some smoke flavor as I did put an oak split, a couple of oak splits inside of the Smokeslinger. Oak splits were used on the LSG as well. So one thing I can say just from the appearance, from looking at them, the LSG ribs considerably darker than the ribs that came off of the Smokeslinger, and I attribute that to them taking in a lot more smoke flavor. So my initial prediction before I even taste these ribs, I'm thinking that the Lone Star Grillz ribs are gonna be smokier in taste. And I think that the ribs coming off of the Smokeslinger probably gonna be more true to what I would think is just like the pork flavor shining through. That's kind of my expectation. Which one I will like better, not sure yet until I taste it. And for Jeannine, I'm gonna try and make this a true blind tasting test for her. So I'm not gonna tell her about the process or any of that. I'm just gonna let her know. Actually, I might not tell her anything. Just that, you know, these ribs were cooked on 2 different cookers and leave it at that and see what she thinks. So stick around, we're gonna do the taste test as soon as Jeannine pulls up. So I'll just call, you know, this ribs number 1, and I'll call this one ribs number 2. Okay, so the moment of truth is here. So Jeannine, I'm gonna give you this rib from rack number 1.
All right.
And I will take this one. This one's calling my name.
This one's calling my name.
Cheers.
Mm. Mm. Think of that.
Okay. What do you think of the taste?
I like that.
Yeah, I think the taste is
It's
good.
really delicious.
The pork flavor is shining through.
I like everything about it.
And it's a really good bite.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Yeah. I could have more of this.
Okay, now, are you picking up any like significant smoke flavor, or what do you feel like you're tasting?
No, I mean, I see the smoke ring, so I know that there's smoke flavor, but I like the balance of the salt and pepper. It's just it's a good bite. You know, every mouthful, I kind of want more. This works for me.
And then what about in terms of like tenderness?
Yeah, I like this level of tenderness. I mean, you know, I could always go a little more tender, but this works for me, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. If I can just, you know, pick it apart, we're good. I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to drown it in sauce or anything like that. I just want to eat it. I give my lips a little extra gloss. We're good.
All right. So next we will try ribs from rack number 2. Is there anyone that's calling you?
I know. I kind of like this one here. So I'm gonna grab that one.
All right.
I do like how when I pick it up, it just bends. I do like that a lot. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. You know, it's funny, when I looked at it, I didn't think it would like behave like this. I don't know what I was thinking, but it wasn't that. Oh, wow. I will say this, the smoke flavor is very pleasant. It's pleasant on the tongue, it's present, it's very good. And I really do like the smoke flavor. It's definitely more pronounced than this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's like immediate off the bat. And I can tell from the look as well. But that's just, you know, an observation.
Now for me, I do feel like I'm picking up more of the pepper, especially on the back end on this one. I mean, at least that's for me.
It's a little fiery. It's not over the top, but I agree. There's definitely more pepper present, but I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I think they both taste very, very good.
Yeah.
Wow, do you have a preference? Do you think one is better than the other one?
Well, I think if I were going for more of a smoke flavor, I would go this way. But I think if I were just going with something that, you know, I wanted it to be really, really balanced, you know, have some smoke flavor, have a good amount of salt and pepper. Like now that I'm having this sit on my tongue for a little bit, the pepper is starting to bite me a bit. So to me, it's a little pepper intense. I don't know if the smoke is magnifying it, but it's definitely, like my tongue is just sort of like, okay.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think if you were to back off the pepper just a little bit on this one, I think it would be my top pick. But I think these are my top picks. Even though like it had everything for me, like you picked it up and it just performed so beautifully, right? But I still think that's my number one.
Okay. Yeah, I think. I do agree. I feel like there's more of a balance in the flavor, the salt and pepper. So number one is actually, these are direct heat cooked ribs. So these were on the Smokeslinger.
I like them.
The fire source was directly underneath the ribs, whereas rack number 2 over here, those were cooked on the Lone Star Grillz offset smoker. So these are low and slow, and that's the reason why you find more of an intense smoke flavor happening
Right.
with rack number 2. Another thing that I observed during the cook was I felt like, especially like after 3.5 hours, when I looked at the Lone Star Grillz version, I felt like the salt and pepper, it was still kind of sitting on top of the ribs.
Yeah.
You know, they were there, which is why I do feel like we're picking up a lot more of the pepper flavor
Right.
on the LSG ribs.
Right.
Whereas I felt like, I don't know, they just seemed like they were more, I don't know, melded in.
It's very balanced.
You know, on the direct heat ribs.
I agree.
And I do think that the taste, overall flavor on the direct heat ribs is more balanced, more even.
Yeah, but you know, the other thing I like about these, even though you pick it up, it doesn't have the movement. What I like is I pick it up and I squeeze it a little bit, and it's so juicy. And for me, that works. It just does something for my taste buds, and it's just a good, pleasant chew. I like it.
I'm a little surprised at how pronounced the smoke ring
Delicious.
is on the direct heat ribs.
Agreed. But it's also very tender. I
Yeah.
like a tender rib, and this works for me on so many levels. It's definitely
So, okay, so
Definitely
overall,
top
I mean, okay, scale of 1 to 10, what are you giving the offset smoker ribs?
maybe like an 8.5.
Okay, and then on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you giving the direct heat ribs?
For sure, like a 9.5.
9.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel like the direct heat ribs are definitely like 1 point better,
sure, yeah.
Than the offset smoker ribs, which is really interesting, especially considering the fact that I can make these direct heat ribs in 90 to 100 minutes,
Whoa.
whereas it took me like 4.5 hours to do the offset smoker ribs.
Yeah.
And neither of these were wrapped, no spritzing. So very interesting. I mean, they're both excellent, outstanding ribs.
Yeah.
If you really are a fan of a deep smoke flavor,
Go there.
definitely stick with the offset smoker version.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan of kind of a more balanced overall taste,
This is 100%.
I think the direct heat method is the way to go.
And if it saves you time, a lot of time,
That's a big plus.
yeah. Especially if you're cooking for a lot of people, and sometimes we do. So
Yeah.
that works.
All right. Well, thanks for participating in the taste test.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Backyard Smokemaster Barbecue channel. I'm your host, Kenyatta Robinson, with my lovely wife, Jeannine. Let me know in the comments what type of videos you would like to see me do next. I have a lot of different smokers, a variety of different options that we can go. I know you guys love seeing the comparison videos, so let me know what you would like to see me cook and put head to head. Tell me the cooker you'd like to see, and we'll see if we can put that together. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care, get out there and smoke something, and I'll see you in the next one.